Home. Before history was etched in stone tablets, it was written in blood and fire by those who plummeted from the heavens. Beings of light who embraced darkness, their sins destined to mold the very fate of our world. This saga unveils their transgressions, the colossal monstrosities they spawned, and the devastation they wrought upon the earth. There existed an age shrouded in mystery, a time predating even Noah's era, a forgotten age whose spectral echoes still linger across creation. In that bygone past, an all-consuming darkness descended upon the world, silent and relentless. In the celestial realms, the sons of God, the angelic watchers entrusted with humanity's guardianship, turned their inquisitive gaze downward. And it was then that they beheld the daughters of men. Their beauty possessed an intoxicating allure, almost a forbidden temptation. A single, insidious thought, simple yet destructive, took root within their hearts. Curiosity blossomed into desire. Desire ignited rebellion. And with that fateful act, the heavens themselves fractured. Eternity became unstable, and the world was plunged into a chaos that no mortal would ever erase from memory. Giants roamed the earth. Cities rose from iron and blood, and the reverberations of that original sin echoed through the corridors of time, impacting generations. Everything we know today finds its genesis in the shadows cast by those who dared to defy the divine order. Beneath a somber sky, heavy with unspoken fate, Azazel, the leader of the fallen angels, convened 200 of his brethren atop the snow-capped peaks of Mount Hermon. The frigid air stung their faces, yet the profound significance of the moment eclipsed all other sensations. Time seemed suspended, awaiting the oath that was about to be sealed. Azazel, his voice resolute, broke the silence. "I fear that I alone will bear the full burden of this grave sin." A weighty silence followed, shattered only by the words of another angel. "Nay, Azazel, we shall all swear. We will all commit to this path together. What has been done cannot be undone." With unwavering resolve, Azazel affirmed, "Then so be it. Our collective fate is sealed. The fall is inevitable." With that solemn declaration, they swore, a vow that would irrevocably transform their very souls and condemn them for eternity. The pact was sealed with the unyielding strength of a promise that defied any possibility of breach. There was no turning back. They were committed not only to the fall itself, but also to the inevitable consequences that would accompany it. And so they descended, not with the gentle grace of angelic wings, but with the raw, unbridled force of an inescapable plunge. They plummeted like blazing stars, tearing through the firmament and leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. As their feet made contact with the earth, the very ground trembled beneath the impact, their forms radiating a terrible, unholy light. For a fleeting moment, the silent universe seemed to pause, holding its breath. Mortals, witnessing these radiant, colossal figures, stood transfixed, unable to fully grasp the magnitude of the spectacle unfolding before them. Then, with a voice imbued with dark power, Azazel addressed his brethren, and the mortals gathered around him. "What has been done cannot be undone. We are the fallen, and the world will be forever altered from this day forward." Empowered by their fiery essence, the fallen angels took human wives, and with them conceived children. But these were no ordinary offspring. They were not mere mortals. These children were born with an ancient hunger gleaming in their eyes and a power that defied the very laws of nature. They grew to immense stature, their bodies reaching such heights that they blotted out the sun. They were the Nephilim, the giants, descendants of a pact that sealed their destiny and the fate of the world. The weight of their fall loomed heavily upon them. The world would never be the same. Their very presence was a palpable terror that spread like a dark shadow over every human tribe. Children of fallen angels and mortal women, these creatures possessed strength and cunning far surpassing human limitations. They rose to become kings and tyrants, gods and monsters, legendary heroes to some, and living nightmares to all. Initially, their hunger was natural. Animals and the fruits of the earth were devoured without restraint. But their appetite grew exponentially, becoming insatiable. Soon, nothing that nature provided was sufficient to satisfy their cravings. Their eyes turned towards humanity itself. The hunt began, and with it, the world writhed in agony. The earth itself, corrupted by their presence, began to give birth to horrors, deformed creatures, abominations that should never have existed. Impossible hybrids emerged from the union of species separated by divine design. Every cry of pain, every human tear, seemed to fertilize the soil with the corruption that spread like a plague. And the watchers, their celestial parents, both witnesses and architects of this unfolding chaos, shared with humanity forbidden secrets, knowledge meant to remain locked away in the heavens. Azazel, a prince among the fallen, taught men the art of forging weapons, cutting swords, impenetrable shields, instruments of war that would shape kingdoms of blood. Others introduced dark astrology, magic, and spells that twisted the soul and bent the will. Humanity, intoxicated by this newfound knowledge, plunged into profound corruption. Violence ceased to be a form of punishment. It became a form of celebration. Chaos became the new law. Even nature groaned under the weight of this corruption. Darkened skies concealed the sun, and the ailing earth exhibited the symptoms of a disease as ancient as the mountains themselves, a rot that extended from the very heart of life to its deepest roots. It was the dawn of an age of shadow, where the divine and the mortal collided, and the world, for a brief but unforgettable moment, experienced a horror that would never truly be erased. In the depths of this abyss of decay, when humanity's hopes seemed to have been extinguished like a candle in the wind, a divine sign appeared. A voice, powerful and unmistakable, rose from the chaos, carrying the weight of an ancient promise. God, in his infinite wisdom and justice, sent a man. Not just any man, but someone chosen. Someone who walked side by side with the Creator without fear, without hesitation. His name was Enoch. In a land ravaged by the corruption and tyranny of the Nephilim, where the darkness of oppression was absolute, Enoch's voice resonated with the force of thunder in the silent desert. He feared neither the giants who dominated the world nor the fallen angels who had corrupted creation with their deceit. He knew that the Almighty guided him, and with unwavering confidence, he cast his message to the winds. "Oh, children of heaven, you who abandoned your glorious home, you who defiled the earth, know this: the Most High sees all, and he will come to judge." Enoch's words were like a prophecy written in fire, echoing through the mountains and across the vast desert. But only a handful of souls heeded his warning. The world mocked him. The masses laughed at the old prophet, blind to the impending storm that loomed like an endless shadow. God's judgment, however, had already commenced. The giants persisted in their tyranny, erecting their impossible towers, which stood as monuments to their arrogance. Their laws, written in blood, were enforced with brutal efficiency, and humanity, lost and directionless, relentlessly imitated the cruelty they witnessed. Enoch, his heart heavy with the pain of a world in ruins, walked among the ashes of the cities the Nephilim had destroyed. He spoke of what he had seen, of visions that burned within his mind, visions of a future where everything would be consumed, where destruction would be total and irremediable. "I have seen the end. The mountains will melt like wax. The stars will fall from the sky, and the armies of the Lord will descend in fire and vengeance." As these words reached the ears of the fallen angels, until then seemingly invulnerable, an emotion they had never before experienced overwhelmed them. Fear. For the first time, they trembled. They who had fallen through pride now approached Enoch, their once radiant forms now somber, gripped by the dread of what was to come. "Prophet, intercede for us. Take our petition to the Creator. We beseech his mercy." Enoch, burdened with the responsibility of a divine messenger, brought their petitions before the throne of God. But the time for mercy had passed. Judgment was sealed, and the scales of justice were about to tip irrevocably against the fallen angels. When Enoch returned, his face was a mask of sadness, a clear indication that the fate of those who had rebelled was irrevocably sealed. He looked upon the fallen angels, now in a state of profound despair. "There will be no peace for you. Your children, the giants, will be destroyed before your eyes, and you will be forced to witness the downfall of all that you have created." These words, like a thunderbolt, shattered the silence that surrounded them. The power of what had been said seemed to reverberate throughout the land as the heavens prepared to carry out the sentence that had long been pronounced. In the vast land where the giants reigned supreme, their colossal figures marched like invincible gods, arrogant in their power and blind to their impending doom. They believed themselves untouchable, indifferent to the whispers of approaching death. Their hearts were so numbed by violence and destruction that fate seemed a distant, irrelevant concept. But time, like a relentless current, is unforgiving, and their end was closer than they imagined. On the horizon, a dark omen began to materialize. As the world sank deeper into the darkness of decay, a new figure emerged from the shadows. A simple man, his soul scarred by the weight of hardship, without fame or power, but possessing something far more valuable: purity of heart. His calloused hands bore witness to the hard work and humble life he had chosen. His name was Noah. He was no hero of grand stature. but his soul resonated like a beacon of light amidst the darkness. His eyes, still shining with hope, reached towards the heavens, even as the earth was consumed by evil. Noah walked alone, but he was never truly alone. For while the giants reveled in their wars and their cities crumbled to dust, Noah walked with God. He was the last flickering flame of justice in a lost generation, a generation sinking into wickedness, corruption, and violence. One night, when the wind seemed to carry the very weight of the world, something incredible happened. A radiant light descended from the sky, not with the scorching heat of destruction, but with a fire that would not consume. It was a divine presence, a force that filled Noah's soul with an intoxicating awe, yet also with a supernatural calm. The air grew thick, charged with a power that could not be challenged. Behold, the end of all flesh has come before me. The earth is filled with violence, and because of this, I will destroy it along with the earth. Build yourself an ark. Noah, filled with holy fear, did not question. There was no room for doubt. The vision was clear. With steady hands and a resolute heart, he began construction. The sound of the hammer striking the woodwork was the only sound heard. It was a solitary rhythm, but charged with profound meaning. Each hammer stroke was a response to the chaos unfolding around him. The people, seeing his work progress, gathered to mock him. Look at the old man. He's building a ship on dry land. Has the sun fried his brain? Where is this flood he speaks of? But Noah did not answer. His answer lay in the wood he cut, in the ark that rose. He was unshaken, for he knew he was accomplishing something far greater than himself. As Noah continued his work, the heavens moved in a spectacle of divine forces. The archangels received orders from on high, and their wings stretched towards earth. Raphael, the celestial warrior, was sent to capture Azazel, the leader of the rebellion who had corrupted earth's creatures. In the depths of the mountains, Raphael found him, a being of immense power and desolation. With chains of spiritual fire, he bound Azazel and cast him into an abyss of eternal darkness, where he would remain until the end of time. Meanwhile, Gabriel, the messenger, had a different mission. He was sent to sow discord among the giants, so that destruction would come not only from without, but from within their own hearts. He whispered words of distrust, envy, and hatred until the once allied clans began to turn against each other. The final war of the giants was about to begin, a war without mercy and without victors. Noah, oblivious to all this, continued his work diligently. He knew that the ark was not just a construction project. It was a promise, a silent promise of survival. A promise that, despite the chaos unfolding around them, there was still a chance to save what remained of purity, of life, and of hope. And so, as the world around him crumbled, Noah continued to hammer, one beat at a time, like the sound of the last echo of justice in a lost world. And then God spoke for the last time. Come into the ark, you and all your household. And they obeyed. From the four corners of the world, the impossible began to happen. From the sky, birds with powerful wings descended in flocks, cutting through the air like living arrows, landing in pairs before the ark. From the fields and forests, entire herds moved like a river of flesh and bone, guided by an inaudible command. From the deserts, reptiles slithered through the dust, obeying a call only they could hear. Even the wild beasts, lions, bears, elephants, creatures that had never known peace, marched side by side without war, without fear. On the seventh day, Noah and his family entered the ark. And then something supernatural occurred. The gigantic door, too heavy for any human hand to move, was closed by God himself. And there was silence, a terrible, expectant silence. Then the heavens changed. The clouds swelled like black walls, towering one over the other until they obscured all light. The sun was blotted out. Lightning split the heavens, not as mere flashes, but like flaming swords ripping through the firmament. Each flash felt as if the very fabric of creation was being torn asunder. A deep sound, almost a groan, echoed from the depths of the world. The earth wept, and then came the roar, a deafening sound, like 1,000 storms unleashed at once. The fountains of the great deep burst open. The womb of the earth spewed forth rivers of fury. The windows of heaven were thrown open, and from on high descended endless curtains of water. They were not drops, but liquid walls, heavy, solid, like a veil of death that stretched over everything. The world, gripped by terror, ran in despair. Men cried out for salvation. The Nephilim, those haughty giants, sons of corruption, retreated to the highest mountains, certain that their height and strength would save them. One of them, perhaps Gilgamesh himself, raised his voice against the thunder, a roar of fury, a challenge to the Creator. But the sky did not respond with words, only with the thunder of a lightning bolt that split the heavens, and with the waters, which rose relentlessly, crushing everything in their path. The mountains, once secure and firm, became fleeting islands, and even they disappeared beneath the relentless advance of the flood. A colossal vortex swallowed giants whole. Their roars, a mixture of despair and defiance, were lost in the foam. Their voices, united with those of men, formed a single scream, a symphony of terror, which was soon silenced by the rising tide. For 40 days and 40 nights, the world was undone. The forests were uprooted. The temples and palaces of kings were swept away like grains of sand. No flesh survived. No human voice remained. Creation was purified by the tears of divine judgment. And when the roar ceased, there was only the sound of the waters covering everything, from the deepest valley to the highest mountain. And there, in the middle of an endless, horizonless ocean, a single wooden boat floated, small, solitary, but holding within it the promise of life. The end had arrived. The end had arrived. The waters, which for so long had covered the earth like a veil of judgment, began to recede. The roar of the abysses ceased. The sea that had swallowed cities and mountains now, little by little, revealed the ground. And the ark, that immense work made by the hands of an obedient man, rested gently on the mountains of Ararat. The silence that followed was profound, almost sacred. It was as if all creation, renewed and purified, awaited the next act. Then the wood creaked. The door opened. Noah, along with his family, descended. His feet, which for so long had known only planks and the rolling of the waves, touched solid ground. The air was fresh, charged with new life. Noah looked around. No empire, no city, no throne of kings remained standing. Only rocks, newly sprouting trees, and the vast horizon. And there, in his simplicity, he erected something grand, an altar, not of gold, not of marble or precious stones, but of ordinary rocks collected from the still damp soil. An altar of gratitude. The fire was lit. Smoke rose. It wasn't just ash. It was an invisible chant, a prayer etched in the wind. And in response, the heavens opened in color. An arch appeared, majestic, crossing the firmament. It was a rainbow, not just light broken by rain, but the Creator's own signature. A pact, a promise. God's voice echoed through eternity. Never again would water destroy all life. It was the covenant of mercy. Years turned into centuries. Generations flourished. The land multiplied with peoples, kingdoms, and cultures. The soil bore fruit. Cities rose. Commerce pulsed. Laughter echoed once again. The world healed. But not every scar disappeared. In the silence of the new land, ancient memories still whispered. Stories told around campfires. Legends of dark times when giants walked among men. And they were not just legends. The Anakim, the Rephaim, the Emim emerged in the land of Canaan, people of immense stature, warriors whose war cries made even the bravest tremble. Their swords were like tree trunks, their shields mobile walls, their footsteps like thunder. And so the echo of the ancient Nephilim seemed to have returned. When the servant of the Most High, Moses, led Israel to the borders of the Promised Land, he sent 12 men to spy out the territory. They walked through fertile valleys, saw fortified cities, immense walls, and vineyards so vast that a single bunch of grapes required 2 men to carry. But they also saw the giants. And when they returned, 10 of them spoke in trembling, fearful voices. The land devours its inhabitants. We saw the children of Enoch. Beside them, we were like grasshoppers, and that's how we looked in their eyes. The people wept. Murmurs of despair spread. Faith wavered. But 2 men refused to bow to fear, Joshua and Caleb. They raised their voices against the terrified crowd. Do not be afraid. The Lord is with us. These giants are nothing more than bread for us. They will fall before the hand of the Most High. Words of faith against an ocean of fear. And so it was. When the time came, under Joshua's command, Israel marched. The trumpets echoed through the valleys. The dust of the road rose under thousands of feet. They were not marching for glory, nor for a king's crown. They were marching for the promise. The cities of the giants rose like walls against the sky. Hazor, colossal fortresses, gates so high they seemed portals to another dimension. But no wall was greater than the arm of the living God. The giants roared. Their spears were like towers, their cries like thunder. But before the Lord, their strength was nothing but dust. One by one they fell. The terror of men was conquered by the power of the promise. And then the last shadow lifted, and the last of the Rephate kings reigned in Bashan. His name was already legend. His fame preceded his presence. They said his bed was made of iron, colossal, so immense it seemed like a monument to an ancient god. His size, his strength, his very existence was a challenge. Og was the final echo of the Nephilim, the last cry of a world that had resisted divine order. And Israel stood before him. The human heart might waver, fear might whisper, but the promise was greater. God's voice still guided his people. And before the Lord, no giant remained standing. Og fell. Bashan was taken. The shadow of the past was being burned away by the light of faith. But the final echo, the greatest challenge, was yet to come. Among the Philistines, a champion arose, Goliath of Gath, a nearly 10-foot-tall mountain of a man, clad in bronze that shone like a cruel sun. For 40 days, he defied Israel. Today I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man so we can fight together. Why do you hide like cowards? All Israel feared. Not even King Saul dared face him. But then, from the sheepfolds, a boy emerged. A shepherd, armed only with a staff, a slingshot, and 5 smooth stones from a brook. His name was David. The battlefield fell silent. On one side, Goliath, a living weapon of bronze and mockery. On the other, a shepherd boy with nothing but faith in his heart. Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? Goliath roared, Come here, boy, and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the air. David replied, You come against me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will deliver you into my hand. The heavens watched. The angels held their breath. The stone flew. A blur, a hiss, a sickening crack. Goliath, the great giant, the invincible champion, fell face down to the earth. The ancient fear that had haunted humanity for ages was shattered by a boy and a single stone. David rushed forward, seized the giant's massive sword, and cut off his head. The Philistine army, seeing their champion fall, broke and fled in terror. The nightmare was over. Under David's reign, the last giants were hunted down and destroyed. Ishbi-Benob, Saph, Lami, the last remnants of a cursed lineage, fell one by one. They were not slain by angels or demigods. They were slain by mortal men, armed with something the giants could never comprehend, faith. The age of shadows had passed. The memory of the Nephilim became a warning, a story whispered through time, a reminder that even the most terrifying darkness can be overcome. It is not strength that conquers giants. It's faith.